Welcome back. I'm with the IEC Chief Electoral Officer Sy Mamabolo, and we are looking at a variety of issues regarding the forthcoming elections. Now, Sy, the question is about the controversies and how you resolve disputes. Let me start with the latest one, and that is the matter between the Freedom Front Plus, not between, they actually approached you and said that they would like you to deregister or to bar Black First, Land First party from registering, but you allowed them to register. And the reason they put forward this kind of appeal is that BLF said they do not allow people of other races into their party membership except for black people.
Yes, we've been dealing with the matter, but perhaps a bit of history is necessary. The Black First, Land First was registered in June 2016. And parties who are aggrieved by a registration of a political party have 30 days to appeal the decision of the CEO to register a party to the Commission. And no such appeal was noted in the instance of the BLF.
At that time?
At that time.
Yeah.
So we have indicated to the Freedom Front Plus that they can still note an appeal, which must be accompanied by a motivated application for condonation of late submission, so that the Commission is given an opportunity to consider the issue. That has not happened. They have now approached the Electoral Court, and the Electoral Court has issued directions. We will be filing our affidavit in the matter, and we'll then leave the matter to the Electoral Court to make a judicial determination.
So the Electoral Court is not part of the IEC, right? It's established to deal with disputes of this nature. Is it part of you?
No. The Electoral Court is part of the judiciary.
Okay.
It's led by a judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judge Mba, and there's two other judges, all members of the judiciary. It functions independently. It has the status of a high court, so it functions like a high court. It has jurisdiction to review any decision that the Commission makes. I think this is an important part of our electoral justice architecture, so that when you are aggrieved by the decisions that either the Chief Electoral Officer make or the decisions of the Commission, you can then review those in a judicial forum. And that judicial forum is the Electoral Court, and it's constituted by the judges. And they will hear the matter, and they'll make a determination, and we will implement whichever order is issued by the Electoral Court.
There's also the matter of the leader of the EFF, Julius Malema, and prominent journalist Karima Brown, and I think SANEF as well are interested parties in this matter. They approached the IEC. I'm not sure whether the Electoral Court as well. They're unhappy about the remarks, the comments made by Julius Malema regarding Karima Brown. How far is the dispute at this time, and what are the issues that need to be resolved from your point of view?
Indeed, we have received a complaint from Ms. Brown requesting that we refer the matter to the Electoral Court. Upon receipt of that complaint, we caused the matter to be investigated. We appointed a law firm to act on our behalf to analyze the complaint and then give the EFF an opportunity to give their side of the story. That I think we needed to do in terms of principles of natural justice. You have to give the other party an opportunity to answer to that which is being alleged. So the EFF has now made contact with our attorneys, requesting more time. They requested until the 29th of March. We said that's too long, because the matter needs to be dealt with expeditiously, and we have shortened the requested time. So upon receipt of their submissions, we will finalize our analysis of the matter and a recommendation will be made to the Commission, either to refer the matter to the Electoral Court if there is sufficient evidential material pointing to the need for us to do that.
Now, part of the concerns on the part of Karima Brown as well as SANEF is the fact that threats were being made on her life as well as lives of other journalists. Now, from the Code of Conduct of the IEC, please explain how parties are supposed to relate to the media and how they're supposed to conduct themselves and what the sanctions are in the event there are violations of this code.
The authority which is competent to adjudicate complaints related to the Code of Conduct is the Electoral Court. So the Electoral Court is vested with the authority to levy fines of up to 200,000. It could order that certain candidates be removed from the list of candidates. It could even order that a party be deregistered. But that's within their purview of authority and not of the Commission. So the Commission, let's put it this way, when the Commission is convinced that there is sufficient evidential material warranting a referral, the Commission will do that. But the adjudication authority is not vested in the Commission, is rather vested in the Electoral Court. So parties, no one under the Electoral Code may intimidate journalists, and to the extent that there may be proven allegations of intimidation, the Electoral Court then is the competent authority to is the final arbiter on those matters. The best that the Commission does in the circumstance is a referral.
Now, there are concerns about certain individuals or personalities on different party lists, and the ANC comes to mind in this regard. Members of the public, commentators concerned that there are those who should not be representing the public and therefore should not be put on these political party lists. From the point of view of the IEC, can a member of public approach you and say, I have reason to suspect and believe that so-and-so should not be given an opportunity to represent the people of South Africa in Parliament? And what do you do in that situation?
There are two things there. The Constitution is instructive on those matters. People who may not be elected into legislative bodies are persons who have been convicted and sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 12 months or more. And that having served that sentence, 5 years must have passed. So, indeed, we will publish the list of candidates on the 28th of March, and members of the public, political parties, interested bodies may lodge objections against certain candidates. However, the Commission is going to measure the merits of the objections against the constitutional provisions. That is the standard. It may not be enough that there's an allegation. You must have been convicted you must have been convicted of a crime and committed to imprisonment for a period of more than 12 months without an option of a fine.
Okay, now, with regards advertising, marketing, are there issues to be considered? I've seen people remove posters of opposing political parties and replace those with their own materials. And somehow we've even seen with the DA putting up big billboards, and those were damaged or removed by ANC members. There's also a video going around of EFF members taking off ANC posters. What are the rules regarding advertising and marketing?
Rules relating to broadcasting are within the statutory purview of ICASA. It has issued regulations to regulate the broadcasting of elections in terms of public election broadcasts, which are free to political parties that are contesting, as well as political advertisements which are paid for. Now, as regards the billboard that you referenced regarding between the ANC and the DA, we have investigated the matter, and the conclusion of our investigation is that that matter can best be dealt in the Electoral Court. And the reason is this. The Concord, in an initial case between the ANC and the DA, has set the following precedent: that the IEC must adjudicate disputes of an administrative nature which arise from the conduct of elections. But those matters that relate to the interpretation of the law and its application to a set of facts, those must be left to judicial bodies to determine, because the IEC cannot assume judicial functions during the elections. Those judicial functions are vested in judicial forums, and the competent judicial forum in our case is the Electoral Court. So our role is to adjudicate disputes of an administrative nature, i.e., no, you made a mistake, you omitted me from the list of candidates, and that a dispute arises therefrom. That's a matter that we are competent to deal with. Or your voter's roll is incorrect to the extent that you didn't record my address correctly. There's a dispute of an administrative nature that we need to deal with. But those matters that involve the interpretation of the law and its application to a set of facts, those must be left to the Electoral Court to deal with. So we've disposed of that matter in that way. The issue of posters that are being defaced and so on, I think we need to send a message to South Africans that our democracy demands a certain level of maturity. And that certain level of maturity cannot solely be achieved by the application of an instrument of law such as the Electoral Code of Conduct. We need to internalize a sense of responsibility so that we have an election which is free, fair, and credible. But that is not solely dependent on the actions of the IEC and the actions of the Electoral Court. That is dependent on the maturity that each one of us, as the 53 million citizens of this republic, must do to protect the integrity of the process. Because ultimately, you want a government that will arise from this election to be one that is based on the free will of the people of South Africa, without let and hindrance. So interfering with the campaign messages of other parties, it's inimical to realizing that objective.
Sy Mamabolo, thank you very much for having been my guest. I appreciate the time that we spend with you here. So there we are. As South Africans, maturity is required. We have to be responsible, particularly if you're a member of a political party, and have high levels of tolerance, because at the end of the day, the outcome of the elections should be seen to have been conducted in a free and fair atmosphere. After the break, we'll be turning our focus to the recommendations made by the Nugent Commission.